Hey guys, tonight we board a train unlike any other. You stand alone on a misty platform, the air so still it almost hums. It's 3:32 a.m. Somewhere in the distance, a low whistle cuts the silence. Soft, dreamlike, as if someone is humming you to sleep from a memory. The tracks shimmer faintly under the silver moonlight, and just as your eyes start to close, there it is. The train. Rolling in without sound, without urgency, without any sign of a driver. Just light. Soft, golden, like melted candle wax pouring from the windows. You probably won't survive this if you're the kind of person who can't handle being gently emotionally destroyed at 3 a.m. by fictional characters on a magical train. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step aboard. The air is warm, not hot, not cold, just like a childhood blanket. The seats are plush, worn in the most comforting way. No one says a word, but there's one man, maybe in his 80s, sitting by the window. His eyes are sharp, not tired but patient. He gestures gently, inviting you to sit, and when you do, he smiles. You know, he says, I used to run fast, so fast people couldn't catch me. Until one day I couldn't even catch a breath. You nod. There's something in his voice, a kind of rhythm that lulls you, like rain on a train roof. He used to be an Olympic hopeful decades ago. Trained every morning before the sun rose. Everyone said he was a shooting star, brief, bright, unforgettable. But a knee injury just months before the qualifying round changed everything. History books don't write about guys who almost made it, he says with a shrug, but you sense he's not bitter, just wistful. Still, he never stopped running, not literally, but in his mind he became a coach, mentored others, watched them win. And while others saw a man past his prime, he kept dreaming of what it felt like to leap across a finish line, not for medals, but for the feeling. On this train, he says, gazing out the window, sometimes I feel my legs again. Strong. Young? Like they used to be. The rhythm of the train pulses beneath you. Outside, the trees blur into soft streaks of green and silver. Inside, the lights flicker with a heartbeat of their own. He leans back and closes his eyes, as if the motion of the train itself is massaging memory back into his muscles. You close your eyes too, just for a second, and in that second, you feel it. A warm breeze, grass under your feet. The sound of a crowd not cheering but holding their breath. You're running, no pain, no past, just motion. And in the whisper of that motion, he says, youth isn't about age. It's about movement, about not stopping. You don't say a word, but you know you'll remember this. Not the man, not even the story, but the feeling of possibility. It's odd how history preserves kings and queens, but not the man who almost broke a world record. Still, as the train rumbles on, you wonder, maybe there's a record in simply never giving up. Historians still argue whether dreams fade, because we grow old, or we grow old because we stop dreaming. Outside the window, the moon dips lower, as if listening. The man smiles again, softer now. I don't need my legs back, he whispers. I just needed someone to remember I once ran. The lights dim. He fades into sleep. You stay a moment longer, your hand resting on the armrest, feeling the warmth he left behind. The train continues. Across the aisle, someone new settles in. A woman in her mid-30s draped in layers of color. Not the kind of color you wear to impress others, but the kind you wear when you're trying to remember who you are. Her fingers trace a soft pattern on the armrest, as if playing a silent piano. You glance over and she smiles, the kind of smile that's been through storms and still chooses to be warm. You ever felt like you were meant to be someone else? She asks almost casually. You nod, even if you're not sure. She tells you her story gently, like unraveling a silk ribbon. Once upon a time, she was supposed to be a painter. Not good for her age or cute hobby, the real thing. Her teachers knew it. Her classmates envied it, but family? They wanted safety, job security, so she studied accounting. The brushes went into a box under her bed and the years stacked up like receipts. I used to dream of colors, she says, her voice soft. But spreadsheets are gray, every single cell, just gray. You can see it. The conflict between who she was and who she was told to be. It's something familiar, like the ache in your knees when rain is coming. She smiles again, a little sad this time. When my boss praised me, I felt nothing. But when I saw a child's crayon drawing taped to a fridge, I'd cry. The train hums beneath your feet, steady as a heartbeat. She pulls something from her bag, a small sketch pad. The paper is worn, corners curled like autumn leaves. But the drawings are alive. Whimsical, daring, soft where they need to be, bold where they must. She flips through them slowly like pages of a diary. Each image is a place she visited in her mind, a beach she never saw, a city skyline that doesn't exist, a bird with paper wings flying over clouds shaped like violins. There's this theory, she muses, that artists don't create, they remember what the soul already knew. Historians still argue whether creative genius is born or made, whether it's divine inspiration or trauma, finding its way out through color. But on this train, no one's arguing. I never sold a painting, she adds, but tonight, I drew all the way from 3:33 to now. My hand didn't even cramp. You glance at one of her sketches, it's the train from outside. Floating, no tracks, just light. I think, she says, this train only shows up for people who haven't finished, becoming themselves. You don't answer. You just sit there, letting her words settle into you like dew on morning grass. Outside, a tree passes, then another, their trunks carved with things you swear look like initials, like someone once loved someone else enough to carve it into bark. She closes the sketchbook, tucks it away. Maybe tomorrow I'll quit, she says. Or maybe I won't, but tonight I remembered how color feels. The lights dim around her. Her head tilts back. The kind of sleep that only comes when a burden has finally been set down. You. Look ahead, the car is quiet again. The train keeps moving. You don't know where you're going, but you know this. You're not alone in wanting more. Just past the woman with the sketchbook, you notice someone sitting stiffly by the window. A man in a trim blazer, probably in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. The kind of age where the lines on your face stop being subtle suggestions and start becoming permanent residents. His posture is perfect, like a CEO stuck in a waiting room. His hands, though, they twitch. Fingers tapping out nervous code on his knee. He turns slightly when you glance his way, nods, then stares back. Out into the dark, you wait. Finally, he says, I used to own buildings. Lots of them, whole streets, I was that guy. You raise your eyebrows slightly, not in disbelief, but to say, go on. I built my first company from nothing, he says. I ate instant noodles on the office floor, watched the sun rise through. A printer-smudged window did all that hustle crap. There's pride in his voice, but it's weary, like someone retelling a dream they don't believe in anymore. And I made it. I did. Glass offices, private jets, the you're too busy to answer your own phone level of success. He turns toward you now, eyes darker than before. But one morning, I woke up, and I couldn't feel my legs. Not like they're asleep. I mean, I couldn't feel them, just silence. A long breath, a long pause. A sip from the bottle of water beside him. Doctors said it was stress. My body just quit. Burned out from always being on, always chasing, chasing, chasing. You wonder how many people would trade places with him, even knowing this. Historians still argue whether the American dream was meant to be a blueprint or a cautionary tale. Somewhere between the skyscrapers and the ER visits, the meaning got fuzzy. He shrugs, as if he hears your thought. I had all the things, but the one thing I wanted most, and to feel alive, I lost. You glance down at his hands again. They've stopped tapping. These days, he says, I live slower. I drink tea that actually gets cold before I finish. I read books that don't make me money. I talk to my sister every Sunday. The train rumbles gently beneath you. This train, he murmurs, feels like the first place I've been where time doesn't want anything from me, where I can just be. A soft smile creeps across his face. I used to fly first class, but honestly, this seat right here, It's the best ride I've had in years." He leans back, gazing out the window. The stars outside seem oddly closer, now like they're moving with the train. A fact floats into your mind. Galileo believed the universe moved around Earth, not because he lacked data, but because movement itself felt like a spiritual metaphor. Things in motion matter. They matter more. You glance back at the man. His eyes are closed now, breathing steady. He doesn't need more wealth. He needs rest. And maybe a sunrise that doesn't come with email alerts. As you turn forward, you spot a flicker in the aisle. Ahead, a new passenger's just come aboard. You wonder who they are and what kind of dream they carry in their chest like a barely glowing ember. The train doesn't stop. It just makes space. The next passenger you find is not seated. She stands at the end of the car, leaning against the wall, arms folded over a soft grey sweater, eyes half-lidded like someone who's always somewhere between waking and wandering. Her skin is paper-thin. Her movements slow but deliberate. The kind of old age that isn't frail, just quiet. She notices you watching and smiles, a gentle, knowing curve of the lips. "You're not the first to wonder," she says before you even speak, her voice like warm wind through dry leaves, "about why someone my age would be on this train." You walk closer, taking the spot beside her, your back to the same wall. "I'm 83, she says. 83 and still dreaming of being 23 again. There's no regret in her voice, just a wistfulness, a taste of honey, left in a cold cup. "My whole life," she continues, "I chased youth like it was a train I had just missed. Creams, surgeries, diets, yoga with names I couldn't pronounce." You both laugh softly. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra's infamous milk baths were for beauty or ritual, but trust me, I tried something similar. Only mine involved goat yogurt and a bathroom disaster I do not care to relive. You chuckle louder than you meant to. She goes on, "But here's the thing. I was so busy trying to be young that I never stopped to feel what it meant to simply be alive." She tilts her head slightly, looking out the narrow window. "I used to volunteer at a hospice center," she says. "They all told me the same thing. No one regrets getting old. They regret not letting themselves live when they were young." A pause, or letting others tell them they were too old to do something they hadn't even tried yet. A teenage couple giggles somewhere farther down the train. The old woman smiles at the sound, her eyes glisten. "My husband passed last year, 60 years together. That man had more wrinkles than our bedsheets, but I would give anything for just one more day of hearing him complain about my cooking." You can almost feel the echo of her home kitchen. Old radio playing, garlic sizzling, a man laughing. Over a burnt pot roast, she sighs, but not sadly, just deeply. "Now that I'm here," she says, "I realize youth isn't about smooth skin. It's about fresh moments. This train, it's full of them." You ask her quietly what she'd wish for if she could choose any moment again. She smiles. "Not youth exactly, but vitality. The ability to run, dance, throw my arms wide to the sky without wincing. I don't want to be young. I want to feel light." And just like that, she closes her eyes. Her head leans back softly against the window. You stay beside her a while longer. In your mind a thought surfaces, how in Japan there's a term wabi-sabi. It means beauty in imperfection, grace in aging. Historians debate whether it's a philosophy or an aesthetic, but the old woman here, she wears it like perfume. When you eventually drift down the car, your pace has slowed. Not from fatigue, but reverence for the things we all carry. The aches, the wishes, the strange little truths no one writes down. You glance back, the woman still smiling, eyes closed. Maybe on this train, she's already begun her lightness. He's slouched near the emergency exit door, earbuds in, one leg bouncing to a rhythm only he hears. Maybe 27, 28, young, but with that heavy kind of tired that isn't physical, more like the weight of too many dreams that didn't pay rent. It's on time. When he sees you looking, he pulls out one earbud, offering a half smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Let me guess," he says, "you're wondering why I'm not sleeping. Everyone else seems like they're already dreaming." You sit across from him. The humming tracks underneath blend with the lo-fi beat, leaking from his other earbud. "I'm a musician," he says, tapping the side of his head. "Well, I was trying to be one. You nod. He gives a small, dry laugh. I used to think talent was enough, like if you had the gift, the rest would follow. Record deals, tours, fans crying at your feet. He mimics holding a microphone and swooning. You both chuckle, but no one tells you about the waiting, the bills, the constant rejection, the way your friends' voices change when they ask how your music is going, like they're already bracing for a sad answer. Outside the window, the world blurs into abstract streaks of dark blue and silver. It feels like you're passing through someone's memory. I started playing piano when I was 5. By 12, I was writing my own stuff. By 16, I had fans online. Small ones, sure, but real. He pauses, eyes distant. I still remember when I bought my first MIDI keyboard. Felt like holding a future. You glance down. He's holding a small worn-out notebook in his lap. On the corner of a page, you catch the scribbled words, "Sleep is a thief with good intentions." Historians still argue whether Mozart would have thrived in today's industry, or just been swallowed up by the algorithm. You smile at the image. Mozart in a hoodie begging for Spotify playlist placements. "I guess I got on this train hoping it goes somewhere my music can breathe again," he murmurs. "Somewhere people don't scroll past my soul in 5 seconds." Then, quieter. "Somewhere I remember why I started." He offers you the notebook. "Want to see something?" You flip to a page filled with lyrics, some crossed out, some underlined twice. There's a stanza that sticks. "I wrote a song I'll never sing, buried it beneath a waiting spring. But if this train don't lie to me, it might still bloom. In harmony." He shrugs, suddenly sheepish. "It's not perfect. It's alive," you say. He looks surprised, then grateful. "Thanks," he says. "That means more than 1,000 streams." The train lets out a soft sigh, like it's exhaling old air. Somewhere down the corridor, a soft jazz tune begins to play from an unseen speaker. Fitting. "Do you think dreams get a second chance?" he asks. You nod slowly. "Sometimes they just need a different audience." He leans back, puts his earbuds back in and closes his eyes. This time the bounce in his leg slows, almost still. As you rise, he raises 2 fingers in a lazy peace sign. "Tell the next stop I said hi." You walk on, thinking about how some dreams don't need applause, just space, and how maybe, just maybe, this train is the encore. She sits in a window seat, wrapped in a long scarf that could double as a blanket, her hands gently clasped over her lap. She looks to be in her late 50s, maybe early 60s, but there's a youthful glow in her eyes that doesn't match the soft lines on her face. When she speaks, her voice is smooth, the kind of voice that probably read bedtime stories every night without fail. "You're wondering if this seat is taken," she smiles, gesturing for you to sit beside her. "But I think it was waiting for you." You slide in quietly, the seat warm from where she's been sitting. Outside the train window, the fog is thick, moving, in slow spirals like it's dancing to a song only the night knows. "I used to be a teacher," she begins, staring out the window, eyes reflecting the moonlight. 32 years, literature and creative writing. A whole lifetime helping kids find their voice. You listen, the hum of the train blending with her soft words. But somewhere along the way I forgot my own. She laughs gently, not bitterly, more like someone brushing dust off an old photo. "I always said I'd write a book when I retired. But now I've got all the time in the world and nothing comes out. It's like the stories moved out while I was busy marking essays." You ask her what kind of book she wants to write. "A novel," she says, her voice gaining a touch of excitement. "Historical fiction, probably. I love the 18th century. Powdered wigs, revolution, hidden love letters in corset seams. You know, the usual chaos." You chuckle. "Sounds dramatic." "Oh, terribly," she grins. "Did you know Marie Antoinette never actually said, 'let them eat cake'?" Historians still argue whether it was propaganda or just a juicy bit of misinformation. She turns back to you. "But every time I sit down to write, I think, what if it's not good? What if I waited too long and the words went stale?" A pause. The train makes a slow, wide turn. The overhead lights flicker briefly, casting a halo around her silver-streaked hair. "You know what the funny thing is," she continues. "I've spent my life telling kids not to fear the blank page. I'd say, just write, you can always rewrite. But here I am, paralyzed by my own advice." She pulls a small leather notebook from her bag. It's worn and lovely, full of notes. Dialogue snippets, sketches of period costumes, even a little pressed flower between 2 pages. I brought this on the train hoping I'd find the courage somewhere between the stations. She taps the cover with a hopeful smile. I don't need the book to change the world, I just need it to change me. There's a silence that follows, soft and respectful. You tell her it's never too late to start. She nods. Maybe that's what this train is for, so it's not taking us somewhere but giving us time. Permission. You look out the window with her. Somewhere in the distance an old bell tolls, deep and slow. Did you hear that? She asks. You both nod like it means something like the sound alone said. Begin now, she opens the notebook. Would you mind if I read you the first line? You shake your head. She clears her throat and reads. The clock had stopped at 3:33 a.m., and yet the world had never moved so quickly. You smile. She closes the notebook and exhales deeply. Maybe it's time I stopped waiting for the perfect story and just wrote mine. You touch her arm gently before standing. As you move down the aisle again, you glance back. She's writing, not fast, but finally. He's hard to miss. Wearing a crisp suit far too formal for a midnight train, shoes shined like he's heading to a board meeting instead of wherever this train is going. His watch glints in the overhead lights, a fancy one, the kind you don't buy unless you're celebrating something or trying to convince yourself you've made it. He sits stiffly, scrolling through something on an old smartphone that doesn't seem to have a signal. There's an air of unease about him, like he's more afraid of stillness than of where the train might be headed. When you sit beside him, he barely glances over. Then finally, a quick side eye and a muttered, "Strange time to be on a train." Huh? You nod. 3:33 a.m. tends to attract the night thinkers. He snorts, loosening his tie a fraction. Or the people who can't sleep because they're too busy running from themselves. You wait. He takes a breath. I'm a finance guy. Hedge funds, investments, IPOs, you name it. Figures. I'm good at it too. Worked my way up from nothing. Parents were immigrants, small house, no safety net. I told myself I'd never live like that again. A pause. He looks straight ahead. And I didn't. I made more money than I knew what to do with by 35. You wait for the part where he tells you he's happy. It doesn't come. There's this moment after your 5th bonus, or maybe your 6th, where you realize you've got nothing to chase anymore. And that's when the dread sets in, like, now what? He laughs, but it's empty. Do you know how many of my friends bought yachts or joined startups just to feel something again? You can only redecorate your apartment so many times before. You start wondering if the problem isn't the paint color. You ask what he's doing on the train. I got sick, he says it plainly. Some heart thing, the kind they usually catch in older guys. Doctor told me to slow down. I told him I didn't know how. The train shudders slightly, just enough to make the lights dim for half a second. I missed my daughter's piano recital last year. I was in Zurich closing a deal. She sent me a voice message of her playing Clair de Lune. I listened to it in the back of a car looking out over Lake Geneva, and I cried like a child. He glances at you. Know what's worse than being poor, being rich, and realizing you're still empty? You nod slowly. He pulls out his phone again and opens a photo, blurry. But you see a young girl, maybe 10, seated at a grand piano, her smile lopsided, one shoe missing. That's what I want back. Not money, not prestige, just that moment. He sighs. Historians still argue whether ancient Roman elites were truly happy despite their wealth, or if they just kept building more fountains and temples to distract from the rot underneath. You say it sounds familiar. He chuckles. Yeah. Some things don't change, do they? The train begins to slow, though no station appears. He rises, tightening his jacket like a man about to step into the rain. I think I'm getting off soon. Not because I've arrived, but because I've finally figured out where I should be going. He holds out a hand. Take care of yourself, and if you've got someone waiting back home, hug them longer than you think you should. You shake his hand, then watch him disappear through a door that wasn't there before. You shift into a seat still warm from the last passenger, the rhythm of the train now steady like a heartbeat. Across from you is a woman wrapped in a patchwork shawl, the kind that looks handmade, loops and threads imperfect but purposeful. She sits with her hands folded in her lap, fingers twitching slightly like they're used to being busy. You catch the faint scent of cinnamon and something else. Flour, maybe. She looks up and smiles softly. Didn't expect company, she says. But then again, you never really expect the 3:33 train, do you? Her voice is low and kind, the kind of tone people use to comfort babies or worried pets. She introduces herself as Nora. I used to run a bakery, she says. Small place. Red awning. Smelled like butter and burnt toast most days. You'd have liked it. You imagine you would have. My hands always hurt, she chuckles. Kneading dough for 30 years will do that, but I didn't mind. People smiled when they walked in. They left better than they came. She folds her fingers together and sighs, but I never left. She doesn't mean the shop. I was 20 when I inherited it. My mother died young, and my father said, "The town needs bread, Nora." So I stayed. I thought I'd travel one day, see the northern lights, ride a camel in Morocco, taste wine under the Eiffel Tower. She looks down. Instead, I watched. Couples walk past my window on their honeymoons. Watched them grow old. Watched their kids start ordering muffins for themselves. Her hands tremble now, not from sadness, but memory. There's an old diary under my bed back home. The first 10 pages are full of dreams. The rest, grocery lists. You stay quiet. I didn't regret it. Not exactly. I was needed. That's something, isn't it? But when I closed the shop for the last time, I looked at my hands and I thought, these hands never held a passport. These feet never stood on foreign soil. And this heart never had a wild adventure. You mention how the train only stops for people with dreams still alive. She laughs, surprised. Then I suppose I'm here to find mine again. She pulls out a small, dog-eared postcard, faded photo of a street market in Marrakesh. I bought this when I was 17. Kept it by the cash register for years. A little joke, you know. Next vacation, Nora. She shakes her head. I think I stopped believing I deserved it. Her voice turns quiet. Historians still argue whether Eleanor Roosevelt ever truly traveled just for herself, or always in service of others. I sometimes wonder if women like me are cut from the same cloth, always giving, never going. You look out the window together. Stars streak like paint across the sky. Maybe I won't get Marrakesh, she says, but maybe I'll get something. Like it. Something that smells new and tastes bright. I'd like that. She lifts her chin. And maybe I'll find someone to hold hands with on a train platform. Someone who sees the flower under my nails and calls it beautiful. You watch as the train slows, a warm, golden glow growing outside the window. It looks like my stop, she says, eyes misty. Thanks for listening. You remind me of a regular I used to have. Quiet, curious, always tipped extra. She presses something into your palm. A business card, yellowed with age. On the back is a handwritten recipe. Cinnamon. Rolls for 2. She smiles once more, then vanishes into the light, and the train moves on. You close your fingers around the little recipe card as the train hums forward again. There's something warm in your chest, cinnamon-scented maybe, but it doesn't have time to settle. The seat across from you is suddenly filled, though you didn't notice anyone coming in. He's tall, slim, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit. Everything about him is neat. Sharp tie, polished shoes, a silver pen clipped just so to his pocket. But his eyes, they flicker, restless, like they're trying to read 10 books at once. Evening, he nods, voice clipped but pleasant. You can call me Elliot. You do, and he doesn't shake your hand, just starts speaking, as if his thoughts are too fast to waste time on small talk. I always wanted to make something that would last, he says. Not just money. Anyone with a bit of cunning can do that, but legacy. Something etched in marble, something people would quote in eulogies. He sighs. I was one of those kids who read biographies for fun. Carnegie, Tesla, Mandela. I wanted to matter. So I built a company, grew it fast, won awards, gave talks, wore the same kind of turtlenecks as Jobs, if you can believe it. You can. But the faster I moved, the less I felt. You know, like I was chasing the shape of success. But it kept shifting. The first $1 million didn't satisfy me. The 10th, even less. He rubs his hands together, nervous energy crackling. I thought, maybe I need more influence. So I went political. Lobbying, podcasts, conferences. I shook hands with senators and slid checks across tables. There's a pause. One night I hosted a black tie gala, the kind where they serve food no one can pronounce. Halfway through my speech, I realized I didn't know what I was talking about anymore. I'd rehearsed it, memorized the pauses, but none of it meant anything. He chuckles dryly. I quoted Churchill, twice. You smile despite yourself. Historians still argue whether Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon out of ambition or desperation. I've always wondered the same about myself. He leans forward, eyes searching. Do you know what it's like to be respected by everyone and loved by no one? You don't answer. I had a brother, he continues, brilliant, quiet. Taught kids with autism how to draw, never made much money. But he laughed more in a day than I did in 5 years. His eyes soften. He died in a car crash, hit by a teenager who was texting. After the funeral, I sat in his apartment and realized I'd never told him I was proud, never asked what made him feel fulfilled, just assumed he envied me. Elliot looks down at his hands. Since then, I've been trying to remember who I was before I became Elliot Blake, founder of whatever. Maybe this train. Maybe it lets you try again. You notice the pen in his pocket. It's engraved. For the words you haven't written yet. He catches your glance. My brother gave it to me, he says quietly. He always said I had stories in me that weren't about balance sheets. Outside, the sky begins to lighten, not quite morning, but not night either. The train slows. Again. Looks like this is me, he says. Somewhere quiet, I hope. Somewhere I can fail without cameras watching. He stands, straightens his suit, then looks at you one last time. Make sure you chase something real, even if it's small, even if it's soft. Better than chasing echoes. He nods once, then disappears through the train door. You sit back. Mind spinning. The recipe card is still in your hand, and now there's another figure in the aisle. She walks with a grace you don't often see, shoulders soft, eyes open, a dancer's balance in every step. Her clothes are simple, pale pink linen pants, a loose white tunic, no jewelry, but her presence feels clean, like the scent of spring, rain. She smiles and slides into the seat across from you. Don't worry, she says, her voice a quiet balm. I'm not here to teach yoga or sell crystals. You laugh too loudly and she giggles. I'm June, she offers, and no, I wasn't born in June. That would have been too on the nose. Her eyes sparkle. I was a surgeon, she says, brushing a strand of silver hair behind her ear. One of the best, or so they told me. Fast hands, cold nerves, saved hundreds of lives, maybe more. She pauses. And I hated almost every minute of it. You blink. I know, she says, shrugging. It sounds ungrateful. I had what so? Many wanted respect, money, purpose. But you know what I really wanted? She waits. To paint, she whispers. To stand in front of a canvas for hours, letting colors bleed into each other, to make nothing useful at all. A beat. But when you're a prodigy, people don't. Let you drift. They give you scholarships, medals, they don't ask what you want. They just cheer louder. She pulls out a folded, worn napkin from her bag. On it, a small painting done in watercolors. A field of sunflowers under a stormy sky. I painted this during a lunch break, hiding in the supply closet of my hospital. One of the nurses found it and framed it. She smiles, eyes glassy. Historians still argue whether Van Gogh's madness fueled his art, or if it was the other way around. Me? I think beauty is a kind of madness, and it's worth chasing. She leans back, exhaling slowly. I left the hospital after 27 years. Everyone said I was wasting my gifts. But my hands still work, and now they mix ochres and blues instead of stitching arteries. She holds up her palms, fingers speckled faintly with dried paint. Still saving lives, she says with a wink, just in a different way. You nod, unsure how to respond. The weight of all these stories is starting to settle in your chest. Not heavy exactly, but undeniable. I'm not going anywhere special, June adds, peering out the window. Just a studio with good light and maybe a cat who won't knock over my turpentine. You imagine her there, brush in hand, jazz on the radio, painting what the world forgot to see. She stands, gives your shoulder a gentle squeeze. Don't. Wait until your hands are tired to start doing what you love, she says. And remember, use the good brushes. She disappears down the corridor, and for a moment you feel an almost physical ache in the space she leaves behind. Then, just like that, a new figure slides into the seat across from you. This time, the man who sits across from you doesn't say a word for a while. He folds his hands, slowly, deliberately. There's something ancient in his posture, though he doesn't look more than 50. Grey at the temples, sure, but posture. Like a warrior at rest. Finally he speaks. "Do you believe in redemption?" You nod uncertainly. He half smiles. "My name's Elias," he says. "I used to build things, skyscrapers, bridges, tunnels, the kinds of things people walk under and never think twice about." His voice has a grit to it, like someone who's shouted over too many construction sites, or perhaps argued with too many ghosts. "But I tore down just as much as I built," he continues. "Not buildings, relationships." He leans forward slightly, elbows on knees. "I had a family, a good one. A son who used to wait for me at the window every evening. A wife who believed in me when I didn't deserve it. But I chose ambition. I worked holidays, missed birthdays, promised I'd make it up to them one day." He glances out the window, eyes catching the blurred stars. That day never came. He pulls a small bent photo from his wallet and places it on the table. "Between you, a boy with oversized glasses, holding a paper model of a crane, beaming. That was Tommy. He wanted to be an architect, just like me." Elias breathes in deeply. Historians still argue whether the fall of great empires came from external threats or the slow corrosion of inner priorities. I know which one tore mine down. You don't say anything. The train hums gently beneath you. "I lost them," he says. "Not in some tragic accident. No, worse. I lost them to time, distance, disappointment, and eventually silence." He clears his throat. "This train, well, it doesn't take me to them. That would be too easy. It takes me somewhere else, a place where I get to build again." He looks at you. "There's a village there, small, remote. I help design shelters for people who've lost their homes. Refugees, mostly. Kids like Tommy. They help me draw the plans. I tell them stories about concrete and courage. They laugh when I can't figure out tablet apps." He smiles for the first time, a real, crinkled eyes smile. They don't know. The old me. Only the version I'm trying to become. A pause. "Maybe that's what redemption is," he says. "Not erasing what you did, but showing up differently the next time you're needed." You nod again, more firmly. Elias reaches across the table, squeezes your hand. "Whatever you're running from," he says, "don't just keep running. Build something new behind you." He stands slowly, tucks the photo back into his wallet and walks down the aisle, a little straighter now. Outside, the train enters a stretch of mist. It curls like silk across the windows, and you can't quite tell where the night ends and the dreaming begins. Then, almost silently, another figure takes his place. She's older, elegant, quiet, with a satchel in her lap and something fierce in her eyes. You feel the weight of another story waiting to unfold. She sits in silence for a few moments, her hands tracing the worn leather edges of the satchel on her lap. Her gaze meets yours, steady, thoughtful, like she's lived 10 lives and still isn't finished learning. "You look like someone who listens," she says softly with a voice that's part lullaby, part echo. "My name's Miriam. I used to be a teacher. Literature, mostly. Poetry, when they'd let me. The kind of thing students groaned about, but remembered years later when life finally made sense." She chuckles to herself, the sound barely above the hum of the train. "I spent decades in the same classroom. Chalk dust in the air. A clock that always ran 5 minutes slow, and kids who didn't know how much I believed in them." You notice her eyes glimmer, not just with age, but with something still very much alive. "But I had a secret," she says. "One I never told anyone. I wanted to be a dancer." She leans back, resting her head against the cushioned seat. "I used to stay late at school long after the buses had gone. I'd put on music, Debussy, sometimes Miles Davis, and I'd dance alone between the rows of desks. Silly, right? An old woman twirling where kids had doodled curse words in their notebooks." She laughs lightly, then grows quiet again. Historians still argue whether the arts shape the soul of a civilization, or if they merely reflect its heartbeat. I say they shape it, even if no one's watching. She shifts in her seat, retrieving a pair of battered ballet slippers from her bag, tiny, pink, threadbare at the toes. "I never had an audience, never had a stage. But in that classroom, after the world had gone home, I danced as if the stars themselves were clapping." She places the slippers gently on the table. This train, she whispers, takes me somewhere with a wooden floor and a window to the sea. I teach movement to women my age. We stretch, we sway, we laugh when our joints crack like popcorn. And sometimes we cry. Because for once nobody's telling us we're too old to dream. You feel your chest tighten, gently, the way it does, when someone tells you something you didn't know you needed to hear. Miriam looks out the window, where the stars begin to blur into fog. Their signal. The journey is ending. The train slows almost imperceptibly, and the mist outside thickens. You can barely make out a station, if it even is one. A platform, perhaps, frozen in time. Shapes wait in the fog, some familiar, some strange. Miriam turns to you one last time. Don't wait, she says. Not for the right moment, not for permission, not for the stars to align. She stands, slips her feet into the slippers and smiles. You don't have to be great, just honest, just brave. With a graceful step, she disappears into the mist. You remain seated as the train sighs to a stop. The silence is soft, kind. The fog outside swirls slowly, like a blanket being pulled over the world. And now the wind down begins. You lean back into your seat, the warmth of all the stories still lingering like old perfume. You think of them, the quiet ones, the ambitious ones, the dreamers, the fighters, the tired, the bold, the broken, and the still trying. All of them, chasing something, or perhaps becoming something. End of script. Sweet dreams. The train will leave soon, or maybe it won't. Time doesn't behave normally here. Maybe you'll stay. Maybe you'll leave. Or maybe you'll wake up. But before that, let this stillness hold you. Let the hum of the tracks cradle your thoughts. Let the weight of regret grow lighter. Let the echo of these lives remind you that yours is still unfolding, still worthy, still full of blank pages and unwritten songs. You're not too late, not too young, not too old, not too stuck, not too broken to try again. And if tomorrow comes, and it will, meet it like a train pulling into your station. Quiet, calm, full of possibility. So for now, let your eyes grow heavy. Let your muscles soften. Let the last stop fade gently into the fog. We'll be here again when the clock ticks 3:33, end of script. Sweet dreams.